meeting to order. Tom Lynch will lead the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in the Beach Haven Municipal Building and mailing the same to the Beach Haven Times, the Asbury Park Press, and the Press of Atlantic City. Mr. Allen.
here.
Mrs. Baumiller. Here. Mr. Lynch.
Present.
Mr. Maskell.
Here.
Mayor Davis.
Here.
Cash receipts in the current fund account for the period of September 1st through September 30th were $2,526,297.95. Cash disbursements in the current fund account for the month of September 2019 totaled $1,037,497.87. Cash balance in the current fund account as of this period totaled $12,887,600.46. Cash receipts in the water utility account for the period of September 1st through September 30th were $29,919.74. Cash disbursements in the water utility account for the month of September totaled $17,297.39. And the cash balance in the water utility account as of September 30th was $3,338,848.87. That's all I have for the manager's report. I have minutes of September 27th, 2019 for an agenda meeting and an executive session of September 27th, 2019.
Has everybody read the minutes?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Ordinance 2019-29C, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 212, 9B, Use Regulations RA, Single Family Residential District, the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, to clarify certain accessory structures only to residential structures RA, RNA, RSA, RB, and RC. Final reading.
This is the final reading, so right now I can open this for public discussion. If anybody wants to discuss this particular ordinance, please come forward. State your name and address.
There's mics there.
Where are the people going to stand here?
There's a microphone at that corner and there's a microphone at that corner.
So it's hard for us to see you in the audience, so please make yourself known if you want to come forward. Does anybody want to come forward and speak? Okay, therefore, I close the floor. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve 29C.
Second.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller.
I voted no previously because the increase of garage height from 15 to 18 feet, which I disagree with, so that's a no. Previously,
Is that on?
I got that. Can you hear me now?
We will try to get that sorted out, but in the meantime, if you just use one of the other microphones, there you go.
Previously, I voted no to this because not only does it define accessory structures, but it also increases the height of a garage from 15 to 18 feet, which I did not agree with, so that is why I am voting no for this ordinance.
Mr. Lynch.
Yes.
Mr. Maskell.
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
2019-31C, an ordinance amending Chapter 27, Article 2, Personnel Policies of the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, to amend leave time allotments and holidays to comply with newly adopted state laws and to match the current negotiated labor contracts. Final reading.
Again, because it's final reading, anybody can speak to this. The floor is open. If anybody would like to come forward, please do at this time. Okay, I close the floor. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
For a second?
Second.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller.
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-33C, an ordinance amending Chapter 213 to clarify the definition of reusable bag and to prohibit the use of styrofoam containers and plastic straws. Final reading.
Again, this is final reading, and so the floor is open if anybody has a public comment.
Yes,
Okay, please come forward and speak.
go back. Hello, and it's pretty chilly in
Please
here.
state your name and
Michael
address.
Peeler, Bay Avenue. Okay, I'm wondering why we're revisiting this. I read the ordinance as it was without these additions. So why are you doing this other thing? Basically, you're adding styrofoam and plastic straws, and you're becoming more literate on plastic bags. Is that it?
Yes, that's
Well,
correct.
you're-
That's correct.
Well, you're not being very clear with styrofoam or straws. Is that styrofoam food container? Is that styrofoam to hold coffee, to hold tea? Straws, any tube that sucks liquid up. So is that a straw, or is that a stir, or stirs? That's why I think you ought to reword this and become more thorough so we're not visiting it again. And also add plastic utensils, plastic cups, and so forth. We're piecemealing this out while we're trying to protect our environment. Why are we going so slow with this? We know it's no good. We know people can't control themselves, and it's everywhere. So why don't we put our foot down? I'll have more after I get a response.
Thank you. I think, we're making some progress, and some progress is better than none.
Well, are we following someone's lead, or are we trying to be leaders? And from what I see, we're just following somebody's lead, and it's not good enough. Why put straws in? What about the stirs that you suck liquids up through at taverns? What about plastic utensils? I've picked hundreds of them up.
Thank
So-
you for your comment.
Well, you're not satisfying it.
Okay, well, sorry about that. Would anybody else like to speak to this ordinance? Okay, I close the floor. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowmiller?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-34, bond ordinance authorizing various capital improvements and acquisitions in and for the Borough of Beach Haven in the County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, appropriating $1,070,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $727,500 bonds or notes to finance part of the cost thereof. Final reading.
Again, this is final reading. Would anybody like to come forward and comment on this particular ordinance? Is there somebody that wants to? I can't see. Okay, thank you.
Colleen Lambert, 115 8th Street. Thank you. Good, thank you. I have a question. Going back to the previous meeting, is the plan still in place to move the pickleball courts from Nelson to Walsh?
We have not voted on a resolution. That has been being discussed. It's not 100% decided. There's not a resolution yet to allocate money for that.
Okay, because I did have some concerns, because at the last meeting, it seemed that that was definitely the direction you were leading. And having had a chance, because we were kind of blindsided that day, having had a chance to do a little research, do a little measurement, and try to get a general picture of what was going on. I really think that's a very poor idea, and I will try to explain why. First of all, the whole process, I don't know what's going on, but I know there have been a lot of private meetings between the pickleball people and different borough members, and we know this because it's on the pickleball website. They post it for everybody to see, and a lot of our players do both, and they saw it. And we went from getting 3 tennis courts redone at Walsh Field and money left over to go to the pickleball courts and the other parks, then that was to be done down at Nelson. And all of a sudden, there was a private meeting, and I quote, "Expect something in the next sandpaper. Of course, nothing is ever possible without you." Don, in a private meeting, got the council to realize the money funded for parks and recreation should be titled tennis and pickleball, which was just for tennis previously. I do believe, fingers crossed, we will get at least 3 to 4 courts. Now, again, we were told one thing, we walked out the door, next thing you know, private meetings, another one that happened on 9/26 with Dave Mike and Sherry Mason, detailed in the pickleball website, and next thing you know, the pickleball courts are going to Walsh, we're losing a tennis court, possibly lining 2 others, and absolutely nobody in the neighborhood had any idea this was coming down. The next concern is the fact that the Green Acres letter went out, and in it specifically stated that funds could be used to create more public access to the bay, improve our tennis courts and playgrounds, build bocce and shuffleboard courts at Walsh Avenue, etc. It also appeared in the 10-2 and 10-9 editions of the Sandpaper. So we knew in the last few weeks that this possibility of Walsh Field was on the table. And yet, all the neighbors, the people in general in the area, the tennis community, everybody's under the impression that it's only bocce and shuffleboard. Now, I have supported the Green Acres initiative, but I think this is misleading, and I think that needs to be cleared up. Because one neighbor I spoke with at the Walsh area said, no, it says bocce, shuffleboard, and tennis. And I said, oh no, at the last meeting, you're talking about putting another 10,400 square feet of pickleball courts, impervious surface, on Walsh Field. And that's a huge amount of cars, a huge amount of people, and you're going into a known flood zone. So that kind of had me concerned too. From the ecological viewpoint, we know that Walsh is a flood zone. It retains water easily. If you're going to add 10,400 square feet of impervious coverage to an already saturated area, you're only going to exacerbate the flooding. The bay is only 120 feet from the courts at its closest point, so the runoff is very likely. What was interesting was the museum archives had a photo taken in 1920 from an Army Corps plane, and it showed 3 tidal creeks and 2 ponds running from the bay to what would be Bay Avenue. And the reason why the town got Walsh Field at such a good deal is because they knew there were no buildable lots. So this has been a flood zone. We've had a flooding problem there forever. And to grade and fill Walsh Field, the cost would be astronomical compared to Nelson, where you already have hard compacted soil. It would be half the square footage. And Frank, I would defer to you in this, but my measurements as a layperson indicated half of the coverage that would be necessary at Nelson as opposed to Walsh. Not to mention the grading and the filling at Walsh, that would be very expensive because of the marshy, wet, soggy field. Also, according to the measurements, I know, Dan, one of your concerns was the play space for the kids, and I understand that. They would only be losing about 20 feet of play space, and there would still be enough room for a U8 for an 8-year-old soccer field there, in addition to the swings and the playground equipment. The traffic and the parking impact would be huge on Walsh. Many of the pickleball players, they're very proud to say that they come from out of town, and they're saying that they have 40 to 60 players a day, so that means an extra 30 to 40 cars a day down in the Walsh area. That's in addition to the daily vehicles that are already there, the paddle boarders, kayakers, and inflatables who use the launch site, park along Pearl. You've got the dog walkers, you've got the tennis players, you've got the soccer players, and you've got the ball players. You have so much going on down there, and to up the human and the traffic congestion like that would be extremely unfair, especially because these people really weren't aware of it, according to the letter that they received. The location is another biggie. Walsh Field is practically the geographic center of this town. So if we're going to do something at Walsh Field, what we had proposed, and you were not aware of this because it was among the tennis players. When we came back for the meeting where you approved the courts, we said, that's a lot of money. And we talked about possibly taking one of the courts and finding something for the kids in this town to do. Now, I know it says, oh, you're just saying that. No, we didn't, and I have a number of people here that can back me up on that. Because as taxpayers, we are concerned about the money going out, and we do want to see something. I know the council's repeatedly said that we need to do more for the kids in this town, and you're right. So we talked to the parents, and things like a volleyball court, dodgeball, lacrosse area, and even flooding it like we used to do growing up here so the kids have a place to skate in the winter. And Walsh Field would be much, much more easily accessible to everybody in town, especially the kids who could walk or ride bikes, as opposed to Nelson on the extreme south end of town. I think one of my concerns too is that Beach Haven has already spent a lot of money on pickleball and tennis, but the tennis courts have been there, the pickleball is relatively new, and they want more. We get that, we support that. My problem is that so many of the people, and they're very proud to say that they recruit from all over the island and the mainland. So we've had all these people coming to our meetings, kind of, storming the Bastille to say, we should build more courts, we should build more courts. I think we should do more for the kids of Beach Haven and the taxpayers of Beach Haven before we build courts for people from all over the island and the mainland. And I hope that we take that into consideration. I would be very happy to meet with anyone and everyone. We have made this recommendation, suggestion numerous times. Unfortunately, we're not included, it seems, in any of the private meetings. Frank, I think if you do some kind of cost analysis as to what it would cost to do on Walsh as opposed to what it would cost to do on Nelson, I think it's going to come in at a fraction of the price. And then we have the money for Veterans Park. We have the money for the other playgrounds. Everybody could get something out of this, but I think we need to rethink the whole Walsh Field. I don't know how that came up out of literally left field, but something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't really want to get into a big discussion of pickleball versus tennis tonight. We're not, this particular ordinance is not addressing that. All it is doing is designating money for multiple different projects. That's just one, and nothing has been decided about the pickleball and the tennis. It's just allocating money to, perhaps part of that money will be able to fund the tennis courts, or perhaps both. If anybody else has anything to say, please keep it short. We have a long meeting ahead of us. Yes.
Jim Lambert, 516 North Atlantic Avenue, Beach Haven. I hear a lot and I read a lot about preserving green acres in Beach Haven, and I have to ask, do we have any more precious green acres in Beach Haven than the existing grass at Walsh Field? Some areas of Walsh Field near the bay are very low, and why would the borough want to pave any more of the grass at Walsh Field for any reason? Especially so close to Barnegat Bay in a low, flood-prone area. This area should remain a groundwater recharge area forever. The cost to build 5 new pickleball courts at Walsh will be at least double the cost to add 3 more regulation-sized pickleball courts at Nelson Avenue. Nelson Avenue, as you all know, is currently a gravel field. Once you remove the weeds at Nelson, the gravel is ready to compact and pave over. If you try to pave at Walsh, first you have to remove the grass, remove all the topsoil, import more gravel, and then pave, and that would require a major soil exchange. The Nelson Avenue field is much further from the bay and higher in elevation as compared to Walsh Field. There's plenty of room at Nelson Avenue to install 3 new regulation-sized courts for pickleball, and a very minimal soil exchange would be required at Nelson Avenue. The money saved there could be well spent at Veterans Park. As a taxpayer in Beach Haven, I state it makes more economic sense and it's more friendly to our environment to add 3 new regulation-sized courts at Nelson Avenue. Walsh Field should remain grass for kids' recreation because it's centrally located in the borough, whereas Nelson Avenue is extremely at the south end. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, this ordinance has nothing to do with the pickleball versus the tennis. Does anybody else like to speak on this now? Okay, so I'm closing the floor. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve 34.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-35, capital ordinance of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, authorizing various water system improvements by and for the Borough of Beach Haven, and appropriating therefore the sum of $760,000 from the Water Capital Improvement Fund of the Borough. Final reading.
Is there any, again, this is final reading, if anybody would like to speak to this? Yes, please come forward. It's very hard to see.
It's Michael Beeler again.
Yes. State your address, Michael.
Beach Haven, Bay Avenue. Is this going to improve, is any of this allocated for improving the quality of the water? Because of everything that we have to deal with now, microplastics, pesticides, herbicides. I know on your town's website, it advises people pregnant, immune system problems, and so forth, do not drink the water. So, I'm wondering if we're going to move ahead and up the quality of the water. That's how we're paying for it.
Would anybody like to answer that?
Excuse me?
What is your exact,
Excuse me?
what exactly is your question?
Is any of the $760,000 going to be spent on improving the quality of the water?
Okay. We have, that money is allocated to refurbish the water reservoir, water plant improvements, including but not limited to relocation of the chlorine injector and installation and/or replacement of approximately 25 fire hydrants throughout the borough. So no, it's not to remove microplastics, but thank you for your comment. We can definitely look into that, but that's really difficult to do, and I haven't found any other water company that has solved that problem, but I'll definitely keep researching it.
Okay, great. Thanks for your time.
Would anybody else like to speak to this bill? All right, I close the floor. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-28C, an ordinance amending Chapter 134, noise of the Code of the Borough of Beach Haven to limit construction noise on Saturday. And this is a first reading.
This is the first reading, so because it's reintroduced, we made some
Correct.
minor changes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second? Is there a
Second.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
All matters listed under item consent agenda are considered to be routine by the municipal council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any items requiring the expenditure are supported by a certification of availability of funds, and any item requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately. All consent agenda items will be reflected in full in the minutes. 214, returning remaining escrow. 216, returning piling bonds. 217s, returning park bonds. 219s, refunding tax payment. 221s, authorizing issuance of an amusement license. 220 MG1. 223s, the 2019 salary resolution. 224s, returning a performance bond. 225s, also returning a performance bond. 226 is canceling water charges, and 227 is cancellation of tax charges.
Would anybody on council like to remove any of these resolutions for further discussion? Therefore, do I have a motion to approve all of these resolutions as written?
Motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
I have a bill list this evening in the amount of $3,207,993.29.
Has everybody read the bills? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes. All right, so now we're on to the reason that we're here at the Surflight. We have a presentation by Mr. Christopher Vernon regarding the Morrison's Marina and Development, and I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Vernon and his associates.
Thank you all. First of all, I'd first like to thank the council and the Surflight Theater for making this all happen today at the theater. The one thing for sure I think we can say is that by the show of the folks in the audience tonight is that we're really passionate about Beach Haven, Long Beach Island, and what happens here at this project. So thank you for allowing me the time to be here. It's a true honor, and I'm humbled to be a candidate to be here in front of you on behalf of Morrison's Marina. It's been in the same family for so many years and generations. For us to take it to that next level, for our family, it's such an exciting project for me to share with you today. I'm going to kind of go over some ideas and some conceptuals, as well as where we are here and how we got here today over the last year and a half, talking to the folks in the community and coming up with our plan. However, we're nowhere near done yet. Unfortunately, we'll probably have another 6 or 9 months of permitting and applications in governmental bodies that we'll have to go through. But in order for us to finalize this next step, we'll have to get your vote of approval tonight and take it to the next level of planning and land use, and then on to CAFRA, and then on to the different governmental agencies that we'll have to get as well. So this tonight allows us one step further to go to the next meeting, which hopefully will be sometime in the next 3 months in front of the land use board. So with that said, I have a very brief movie I'd like to just show, a clip just to show you on where we are as a company and how we got here, just to let you know how excited we are to make this happen. Andrew, please.
From a family with a love of Long Beach Island that spans 4 generations, comes a boy with big dreams who started a mission that was 15 years in the making. His goal? To renew and invigorate fallen local businesses and create memorable experiences that will inspire and bring visitors back for generations to come. This is the mission of Mercer Management. Cultivate and curate the best of what Long Beach Island has to offer in a destination that meets the expectations of the modern vacationer. Beach Haven Hotel and Marina, a family-oriented waterfront hotel and boating epicenter, with public waterfront pier and kid-friendly amenities, all just steps from the center of historic Beach Haven. Offering ample parking on site for guests and visitors, as well as complimentary shuttles and bicycles. A mariner's paradise, minutes to local charters and fishing clubs, with preserved and upgraded slips, fuel and ship stores. Beach Haven Hotel and Marina.
through some of the design and criteria and inspiration, ideas, geographical areas we researched. This has been going on for about 20 years. We started up on an island, and the ability to kind of capture this maritime marina hotel concept, similar to the Keys or some of the main waterfront areas, Mystic Seaport, are really unique, and it's not something that's not done before, where you can marry a marina with a hotel, and basically those two have such a cohesion of uses and such an explosion of economic vitality for the community. And I'd like to talk a little bit about overall how that plays out. So basically, this was the backdrop we saw as we showed it. It shows you the layout of the site. And basically we have the existing park here, the parking area here, which is going to remain a crushed seashell type of product, very similar to what we do on some of our other locations. The boat lift will remain, the docks, and all the boat slips. Make no mistake about it, there are 137 boat slips. There will always be 137 boat slips at this marina. We are not diminishing whatsoever. The ability to really enhance the marina is so parallel here that it's really going to make the hotel and the entire campus work together. So with that said, there's probably about 20%, give or take 20, 25, 18 slips every year that remain empty because the market doesn't necessarily demand on average. After talking to the owners and Franny and trying to understand the history and the operation. We met at length with the Tuna Club. We met at length with the Charter Club fishermen and the locals in the area. We met a lot of you folks in the areas of your own places of business, in attorneys' offices, and so forth, to kind of gather as much information as we could and to try to implement as much as we could and to try to put something in for everyone to make revisions and alterations to the original plan. This plan started out much larger than it is today. And by that, we scaled it back substantially to where we can park and operate and function the marina based on our experience with some of our other sites. You know, one of the craziest successes is it could become your biggest failure. We opened up Hotel VI, and in my wildest dreams, I had no idea that we were going to be this one-hit wonder where everybody had to get on the roof and everybody had to come in to see the hotel. That's incredible benefit for so much of our talented people that they spent so much time to create this demand in the press, and everybody wanted to see it. But it also posed another realistic problem in parking and challenge at valet. And I can tell you that we've got through this year, and early July was drastically different than it was in late August. So we got our handle on it, and by the end of the season, we got game on, we got education, and we now understand the operation of expanding and shrinking parking, because that really is a big part of our challenges. You can become too successful and you become a ferret to your own success because of your parking challenges. So that right out there is a great opportunity for us to know that right from the get-go and take that on head on. Basically, the hotel, as it sits today, after meeting with some of the neighbors and the views, we wanted to break the building. We didn't want a wall, per se. So we broke the building in 3 different spots that you can actually see through the building. Underneath, when you walk down the pedestrian street, you'll be able to see through the building and into the back maritime to see the back of the boats and the fishing and the actual marina. And then to the west of the property, of course, is our restaurant. Now, this is actually a superimposed picture. So this is our graphic artist guys who actually take the actual buildings as they exist about 2 weeks ago and superimpose our facility in proportion on this site. So it gives you an idea of where the hotel is going to be situated, how it'll lay out. This is really a real concept site plan of where we are now today, prior to our big meeting in a few months, to where we'll then have all our experts drill into all the real details. Today, I'm here to tell about the conceptual, what we gathered and learned from all the neighbors, and try to implement most of that into our project. So this gives you an idea of where the Pavilion Snack Bar is going to be, where this great opportunity for us to take advantage of this pedestrian walkway for all the general public. This is going to be deed restricted for eternity, where basically this will remain a public access where you can come down with your bicycle, your dog, your grandpa, and you can enjoy the bay along that pier. In addition, there's another spot here, and this is all about public access, this project. The DEP has found that hotels work very nicely with marinas. So they've changed their rules, and they're now water-oriented uses are perceived as something that will benefit marinas, because let's be honest, after Sandy, we all went through Sandy, most of our family marina operators got crushed. Most of them did, a lot of them didn't survive. And how do you move on from that? Well, CAFRA realized that and said, what else can we do for these marina owners, which are small business folks, to enhance their opportunities on their sites? Because how many marinas were here 50 years ago that don't exist anymore because there's a bunch of giant single-family homes on it? Or how many motels or hotels have gone away because you can build a new home on it rather than the motels? So to be able to do this, Capitol has realized that this is a benefit to the marina, so they've now allowed us to consider a hotel to bring people in and engage and on the waterfront and have access to that. So basically we have the waterfront access here. We have our parking as well down here. We have parking at Lot B. We have our wave pool, which is going to be an amenity for the marina guests as well as the hotel guests. We have our marina maintenance and amenity building, and we have our building here, which is our marina clubhouse, and I'll get a little bit into that further. This is our hotel location, and of course this is our restaurant. Another superimposed picture from an aerial from the bay, basically looking east on the site, and today as it exists as a Google Earth. So quickly, I'd like to kind of show you some of our inspiration ideas of where we went and what we got and what we gathered as far as some of the ideas of where we're trying to take the hotel. So up and down the East Coast, great maritime, seafaring kind of communities. And basically, we talked to the charter folks, and they said, you know, Chris, we'd like the idea, but we don't want to lose any slips. We want it to be charter fishing. So we took that to a new level. We want to really drill in maritime charter fishing club. And you can catch your fish, bring it back in the restaurant, we'll serve it up for you that night, we'll market for them, we'll do excursions for them, we'll have family stays with them, we'll really promote that because that's what works. It's proven in the Keys and in these other marinas up and down the coast that that's what brings in our visitors, and to really engage and hopefully enhance our charter fishing club. As well as, basically, this site has to be walkable, bikeable, golf cartable, and trolley. So working in the community to figure out how we're going to transport these people on those Saturdays in July and August, and how we're going to move them around. We have some really great ideas on how we're going to try to achieve that. And a lot of that will come out in true detail during the planning board meeting and that testimony. But to give you ideas that we're constantly with our professionals researching and doing traffic studies. You might have saw us out there over the last 6 months doing studies all different times of the year and all different weeks and all different weekends and time of the day. You get a real global picture on what happens in the parking of Beach Haven. So we're not putting rose-colored glasses on and claiming something that we haven't actually witnessed ourselves, and how we might be able to be a part with the community to solve some of those problems. So basically, we have the amenities are going to be on this site, are going to be amenities that will be in any five-star hotel. I love the idea of doing a great pier entrance to where you come down the street there. This will draw you in as basically the entrance to the entire parking lot area, which will drive into that main parking lot. So our idea here was to keep the ship store structure and enhance it, turn it into the most iconic Beach Haven concept that we can possibly think of. Whether it's standing seam, whether it's shuttles, whether it's corbels, whether it's brackets, whether it's ticket, whether it's board and battens, whether it's cedar shakes, there's different types of shakes. These are great things that we can work together with the Architectural Commission and comply with all the requirements to make this thing as quaint as a Beach Haven cottage could be in modern day. Basically, we're going to renovate and upgrade that facility, as well as make it a beautiful walkable area as well. With regard to the hotel, it sits behind, of course, that. So it basically acts and functions like a country inn model, where you would come in, you check in, you get your keys, and then you would then go to your room from there. There'd be a marina, maybe a lounge in the lobby, maybe some fitness equipment in that building. That'll be like kind of where the meeting happens, where the marina guests meet up with the hotel guests. It's kind of just a great place to kind of network and relax for the most part. And then we have some of the other renderings that we've kind of evolved over the course of the last year. This was not here originally. We kind of knocked this, changed this around substantially. This will be the one of the marketing kind of things for the sports fishers, as well as this garden here we created. It's green space. They'll actually hold some of the recharge system for our irrigation system and whatnot, but it really breaks the view as a result of meeting with the neighbors. This was one of the benefits. We were able to pull the buildings apart and separate them to allow for natural sunlight and views. The pool and how it is situated in the property is basically a great gun-eye pool, which will be kid-friendly, as well as be able to service the marina guests, as well as the hotel guests. This is a great shot down Second Street where you basically have the restaurant. You're standing on the end of Dock Road here, and you can take a look down the hotel and the restaurant. This will be the entrance. This is a big part of extending the Dock Road Sunset area. I mean, this is a great thing for Catholics to really understand it. To extend that, double what it is now, to where you can walk in front of the restaurant now, which will be a separate walkable area where you can go. Basically, anyone can go there and enjoy the sunset and have public access to that. Sit on the bench, or just cast a fishing pole, or just enjoy the sunset. This is a better shot of that area. It shows you the back when you're on a boat looking at the marina. This is what you'll see. We wanted to do some really great glass plating windows. I, for one, remember, like it was yesterday, sitting at the old restaurant here looking over. What I remember is literally you were on the water. As a result of meeting initially with Catholic, they had requested, because if we ever needed any bulkhead repairs, that we push it off the building. So that's the reason that it sets off the building a little bit more. But it's basically all designed and set up to modern standards and at the right proper elevation. And then this is same view, but a little further up the bay. Basically, what we did was we took the ship store that was in the front of the building and converted that. And this is where, after talking to the marina guys and the operators, the fuel pumps will remain where they are in that proximity, but the ship store will be moved over to here. It'll be actually part of, in addition to the restaurant. So kind of like when you'll be able to go in the restaurant and then wander into the store, and you'll be able to get some really great, see some Morrison's hats, and maybe some sweatshirts or some shoes, or maybe some parts, maybe a new prop or spin wheel, something for your boats as well. We're going to actually expand the inventory and enhance. We're not by any means, make no mistake, we're not diminishing the parts or any of the inventory in the ship store. We're just relocating it to where it might work, we feel, much more conducive to the motoring public. As well as this pier is going to be a really unique opportunity for us to really make that a space that you can enjoy as well. This is a great spot too as well. This is our waterfront pavilion on the North Pier. And in the old days, actually, they brought barges here in the 20s, I think, and they actually sunk them, which created this pier and actually created the wharf in the old days. But basically what we're going to do here is create this pavilion that will be able to basically bunker crab traps or whatever we might have to service the the general public that might want things just to go fishing, as well as to be able to get a cold refreshment, a beer, or maybe some snacks out there as well. And that will be a public access pier that will be a great benefit that will really, in a sense, allowing anyone to use that during the regular hours. And security and lighting and all that will be a part of that as well. So I talk way too fast. I'm super excited. I probably forgot it. Is there anything you want to ask of me before we move on?
Chris, I have a number of questions I wanted to ask you. Number one, let's talk about the gas pumps. Are the gas pumps going to be too close to the restaurant?
So the gas pumps are where
they're there now.
Yeah, the gas pumps that are there in that proximity will be similar to where they used to be in the old days where the restaurant was there. Now, we'll have to make the application to DEP and the fire department as well.
Okay.
These are part of our probably 10 other governmental agencies and permitting process that we'll have to do, but one of those will be the proximity to the fuel pumps so it's safe. One of the reasons we limited public access was we didn't want those too close to the gas pumps and the kids being able to wander into this area where it might be a little, tricky with gas pumps and bigger boats.
Let's talk about the traffic study. I know there is one. I'm not sure it's completed. Okay. I saw a little bit of it. I wondered if they had made any recommendations. I didn't see any about making some one-way streets.
So that's part of the.
So, just for everybody's understanding, that is more of a site plan issue.
Okay.
And that's something that the Land Use Board is going to have to hear because I've seen some members of the Planning Board here tonight, and there are 2 members of the Planning Board, Land Use Board on council. That is something that they cannot prejudge as a member of that Land Use Board.
Well, I'll go through my questions, and if there are part of it, you can just wave me off.
Yes.
Okay, the other one was stormwater management. Are you going to work with Frank on that?
We are, and our professionals will handle that during the.
Okay, and get the approvals there. Also, the infrastructure, the sewer, water, electricity, and things like that, they're going to have to be elevated, obviously, from what it is today. Is there going to be, what's your plan there?
Sure. So if I may, our process of permitting will be extensive. And all these different agencies are required through all the engineering, the DEP, and then also these third-party vendors, actually, with regards to the electrical and whatnot. So that will be handled through all the professionals and all the permit applications.
Okay. The Tuna Marlin Club, you've made an agreement with them?
Yeah, we met with them for an extensive amount of time, and I think just this past weekend they had a board meeting, and I don't want to represent them, but they want to come up and say what the agreement entails. We are more than willing to work with them and committed to really enhance that experience. That's part of that whole marina hotel concept, where if we could do festivals and really create something special and work together.
What about parking there?
Parking?
What about parking?
So there again, parking will be handled at a further, but I'm really excited about the overall concept and the number. We will be able to park the project, and we'll handle it appropriately with the right testimony from the right expert.
Okay, this may be a loaded question, but what happens if you're turned down? Do you intend to buy this place?
We do. After much deliberation with Jane Nino's family, they picked us. We really had this great dialogue, and we've laughed and cried, and we've really drilled into this thing. We got beat up, and we just figured out that we're in this till the end. And
do you have a plan B in case this one doesn't work?
We do. And I'm not going to divulge that because it'll come up if it gets denied. But the model is there is a plan B, which is nice to have that as an alternative.
I see.
So in other words, if you're turned down with the redevelopment, if the vote is negative on the redevelopment, then you would have to plan something for that site because you're planning on buying it. You're not going to let it go. You do have a contract. And you do have in mind what you might do with that without a redevelopment plan.
This is it. So plan A is this is it. We poured our heart and soul into this project and what we can do and how we can make it and represent this as part of our inspiration, our team's creativeness. I think this really is plan A for all the right reasons, and I would hope that you would allow me to prove that to you over the next few months by your vote tonight. However, if it does not go well.
Right, that's what I'm asking, if it doesn't go through.
I am so incredibly excited that Jane and the family believes that we're the people. So something will happen there. We'll have to comply with the marina. It may not be certain things. It may not be under the redevelopment agreement. It may be by right already zoning that is going to allow us to do something different. But I can tell you that there's no other process out there that I've ever experienced in my 35 years of building that's got so much public interest and comment and input. So I'm excited that this is the process. I don't know the other ideas if we need that, but I know that we're really excited either way for our family to really take this generational business to the next level.
Do you want to break down your parking, how it's, I've heard so many different stories of parking and, anywhere from 300 to 1,000. Am I allowed to ask that question?
Well, I mean, he has already given you testimony, not testimony, but in his presentation, because this is not a hearing, so to speak, it's just a presentation, that he can support the parking that's required under the borough ordinances.
Okay.
And I believe that there, on his plan, you can see the number of parking spaces, and that he exceeds the required amount.
I know. I just thought you might want to break it down. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think we have to stick with what is in the redevelopment agreement because that's what we would be voting on tonight. So, if it's stated in the redevelopment agreement, I guess he could.
Well, again, the concept plan that he has up here that everyone can see is an attachment to the redevelopment agreement, and it clearly identifies the parking areas that are being proposed that mayor and council are considering with the redevelopment agreement tonight.
Exactly.
So you can talk about the number of parking spaces that you have shown on your plan.
Sure. So currently we show approximately 252 parking spots between this D, C, and B parking lots, and of course A under the building. We're only required to have 186. Now the real world is on a Saturday night in August, what happens? Okay, the ability to convert this parking lot and this parking lot into basically valet. I'll have 12 to 15 guys out there will attend the cars. We do not. the misnomer or the rumors of Hotel LBI, we charged it first, and we had problems, and then people perceived that it was a charge, so we couldn't get the people in the garage when half the parking garage was empty on those busy weekends. We did away with charging. So the boys who parked the cars loved that because they did quite well this summer. But the boys, they got it. By the end of mid-August, actually, we kind of figured it out. Now, that's still to say there's also always going to be some challenges, but the beauty here is we have more parking, far more parking here than we do there. This project in scope is about 40% less in size on a lot that's almost 3 times the size as the Hotel LBI. So get your arms around that, and that is a far less intense project than Hotel LBI. And the comparisons between the two are night and day in regards to parking and what we're able to expand it up to. We can get almost up to 400 cars on this site if we valet parking from a standard conventional parking. We will commit to have parking attendants here throughout the entire summer months, all summer, July and August. There'll be somebody here parking attendant. There'll be someone here on valet parking every single weekend. And that's part of the hotel experience of the guests that demand what we do. And we learned a lot about that at Hotel LBI this summer.
You also met with the architectural committee, the 2 gentlemen. How did that go?
So that was, it was a while. We met over a number of months and give and take. We kind of gave them our ideas and we came back and we basically at the end of the day, some of the themes and the concepts of the building, the natural siding, the brackets, the type of whiteboard and the overall perception of the building with regards to the front cottage, if you will, was important to them. But I don't want to also speak for them as well. Sure. But it went very well, and we took a lot of their concerns with our architects into consideration in finishing up the project.
And for your information, one of the exhibits is a compilation of the recommendations made by the Architectural Advisory Committee, and so they're incorporated into this agreement.
Okay. 2 more questions and I'm done. The pool, is that going to be a private club pool? How are you going to work that?
Sure. So the pool will have an access safety card. I'll let him talk about the pool. Right?
We all right to talk about that? All right.
So the pool will have an access card. Basically, there'll be a room card key, and including the docks. So safety, the nice thing about this marina is it's open. It's entirely open. You'll have a gated here at this dock, you'll have a gated dock over here, and basically you'll have a gate over here at the pool, which will allow you to access that with your key card, sure, if you're a marina slip holder or if you're a hotel guest.
Okay. And
there'll be there'll be security there at the pool as well.
If you're approved, how long do you think it'll take to get CAPRA approval? Is that a loaded question? Ballpark figure?
I don't think anybody could ever answer that.
Not sure.
Okay.
I'm just not sure. It could take as much as 2 years. It could take 3 years. The CAPRA process is a very detailed process of back and forth.
Okay, I asked my questions.
Does anybody else on council have questions to ask Mr. Vernon?
I have one. If CAPRA comes back and wants material different changes to your plan, does this process start over?
That's a great question.
It will depend, the process in the presentations of what he needs to change based on the CAPRA approvals, yes. If he requires a material change to what you approve, he will have to come back and get approval again, because it's not what you have agreed to.
For example, if CAPRA says you cannot build along 2nd Street.
Yes.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Right. So we would have to go back and renegotiate.
Yeah.
Correct. Because he would not be able to comply with the terms of the agreement as it's written.
And I think that's the important part we all have to remember. Tonight's decision is one more step to many, many more decisions and many more public notices and public meetings that allow the folks to really weigh in on the really detail-oriented information.
Any more questions council has?
The New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan has designated Beach Haven an environmentally sensitive barrier island planning area. In 2018, the ordinance 2018-34, which is your redevelopment plan, exempted you from our own stormwater management laws and drainage. So my concern, of course, is the sustainability of this project on such an environmentally sensitive barrier island. There's nothing here that you can present to me that could give me an indication that you are going to collect stormwater, drainage, irrigation, anything along those lines, because there's nothing in your presentation or your video that convinces me that the environment is going to be protected.
In general terms, you can respond, but in terms of how you're going to do that, that is a site plan issue that has to be vetted at the land use board, and therefore you cannot get into that detail this evening.
So, I'm not an engineer, but I can tell you that this bay is just as important to me as it is to you and hopefully all the folks here. So what we can do is smart developers, designing that sustainable future with all the different elements out there we can consider. It may not be required, but could volunteer. We're all about that, but unfortunately, I need to have the engineers design that, and that's a very detailed process of engineering that I'd be more than willing to present at the planning board on how that's all going to work. But to go into that now, I don't have the expertise of the engineering to do it.
I just don't feel comfortable moving forward living on a barrier island and have no guarantee that the environment is not going to be protected. We make, as a state, millions of dollars in Little Egg Bay and Barnegat Bay. Could you possibly elaborate on this stormwater management that you've done at the Hotel LBI as an example for me?
So there again, our DEP process will be satisfied, and
I do think because the sites are so completely different that one really has to be separate from the other. It is a site plan issue, and I understand Mrs. Ballmiller's concern, but at the same time, that would really put council and the planning board members in a bad position when the application, should this get approved, go before the land use board.
Could I ask you a question relating to this? If we approve this redevelopment agreement, and when the site planning comes forward, and the water store management, because I'm concerned about the bay as well, and I know we have a lot of people that are fishermen out here. We have the charter fishermen, and you want boats in your marina, right? So obviously we want fish, and we want a healthy bay and a healthy ocean. But so we say we approve this redevelopment agreement, but then we're not happy with the stormwater situation that is part of the site plan. What happens?
Well, the land use board will evaluate the stormwater system that is proposed. If it doesn't meet the standards, it'll be evaluated through our experts, and it will be evaluated at length through CAFRA and the CAFRA approval process. And so that is really where it's going to be completely vetted. Right. And if they are not satisfied, then he will not get approval.
So in other words, if we approve this, isn't a guarantee this will go forward. It has to go through all these other steps before this actually happens, correct?
Correct. And Frank would like to say.
Yeah, I just want to say that if anybody's ever experienced a CAFRA review and approval, it's probably one of the most stringent reviews you'll ever go through. It does, minimum, even on a small site, take 6 to 9 months to get an approval. They're critical of stormwater, they're critical of water treatment devices to treat water. That's one of the reasons we discussed the fact that really CAFRA, who's the major environmental agency that oversees the barrier islands, is involved in the stormwater process. And they're going to run him through the ringer when he goes to that agency between parking, everything, maintaining the marina, how they develop the hotel to ensure the marina continues.
Any other questions the council has?
I have one more question.
Okay.
Mr. Vernon, did you witness last week's flooding event?
I did.
Okay. That area was under a foot of water, so and that was Columbus Day weekend, if that was a day that would have been on Friday, a big wedding weekend, so how would you move all your cars?
So very simply, that is truly an act of God, the Northeast, and every year or so in the fall.
That's not
I don't know about you, but that happens at least once or twice a year in this time of year.
about 6 to 7 times a year.
Okay, all right. So at the boatyard, we experienced the same thing. Basically, we didn't open that day, where we just basically sent a notice out that we weren't opening that day. And basically, we modified our business plan just like all the other businesses in Beach Haven do. So we would handle that appropriately with proper notice, state of emergency, or warn the folks that this weekend is not a good weekend for them.
Any other questions? Any other questions by councils related to the redevelopment plan? Agreement. No? Okay.
Redevelopment agreement.
What?
Redevelopment agreement.
The redevelopment agreement, sorry. Not plan, agreement. All right, so we have a resolution to pass this, and you have, yeah, just let me finish. We do have a resolution to pass this. We're not required to have public comment before a resolution. I just want to make that clear. But because this is a very controversial issue, and a lot of people came out tonight, I'm sure, to express how they feel about this, I would like to open the floor to public comment now. I would like to vote on this. I would like to have the public comment end by 10:45. It is now 8:10, so we have quite a bit of time. We have some ground rules about public comment. Sherry, would you like to state the ground rules, or do you want me to? No, you have them written down.
Emily, did you need to summarize?
Yeah, I'd like Emily to summarize as well before we...
I would like to give some information to the public with regard to what's in this redevelopment agreement. We have, as Mr. Vernon said, we've been negotiating this agreement for over a year and a half now. Last November, he entered into a memorandum of understanding with the borough for the project. We've been working with him diligently since that time. He's given public presentations to the governing body, Land Use Board. There was a public presentation on a Saturday morning at Bonnet Island. And what you're seeing tonight is virtually what you saw in June when the Land Use Board and the governing body discussed the height for the 3-story proposal. This redevelopment agreement does provide the borough with a level of control over the project that they would not have if Mr. Vernon came to the Land Use Board with a conforming project under the current zoning. I just need everyone to understand that this redevelopment agreement does allow the borough to make requests of the developer that the Land Use Board cannot make. One of them is the deed restriction for the marina that he is willing to file to keep 137 boat slips, to keep the marina dredged to a depth of 4 feet, and to ensure that the marina public access is there. The CAFRA approval process will require that increased public access that he's discussed, and it's also contained within this agreement. The deed restriction is just one of the obligations that he has under this agreement. Another is that he worked cooperatively with the Marlin Tuna Club, as well as the charter fishermen. This agreement provides for at least 5 events per year with the Marlin Tuna Club. They work cooperatively, and it also requires that 20 parking spaces along Pennsylvania Avenue closest to the club be clearly marked for use by the Beach Haven Marlin Tuna Club between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. May through November. And those are the same restrictions that are going to be for 9 spaces for the charter fishermen. The redeveloper will be obligated
under this agreement to meet with the borough and borough staff. We're going to have a project manager who is going to monitor the construction. They will be meeting every 2 weeks once construction starts, and the Architectural Advisory Committee will be meeting with the architects for the project and Mr. Vernon throughout the process to ensure that the materials that they've discussed are the materials that are used. The colors that the borough is interested in seeing on the project are there, the signage, all of that. And those are things that have been agreed to under this redevelopment agreement. Everything that I've just mentioned are things that would not be possible without this redevelopment agreement in place. Any modifications, as Mr. Allen was asking, any modifications to this plan that is being approved or may be approved this evening will require Mr. Vernon to come back to Mayor and Council and make another presentation and get approval in writing through an amendment to the redevelopment agreement. He cannot, on his own, make changes and then come and ask for approval. That the approval must come first. The site plan process that will be followed here is like any other site plan application. The Land Use Board has jurisdiction to hear that application. I know you've heard me mention tonight that we can't talk about this and we can't talk about that. That's because the Land Use Board members cannot prejudge an application for site plan. And I want to be clear that those meetings are public meetings with public notice to property owners within 200 feet and public notice in the newspaper as any other application. So you will have an opportunity another time, as soon as that application is listed to be heard, you will have your opportunity to hear all of the detail, hear the experts speak, and ask questions at that time for the detailed site plan. Tonight's discussion is for the evaluation of this concept and whether or not this is the direction with the obligations that Mr. Vernon has agreed to. Is this the direction that the borough would like to go? There is a lot more to do in this process. This is just the next step. The memorandum of understanding was the first. This is the second. There will be many, many more.
Could you also bring up, because this is a redevelopment agreement, there was some comments that I've heard about people worrying about the restaurant having too many people in it at one time. That is also in the redevelopment.
So the redevelopment agreement allows for up to 400, but no more than 400. And this will be completely, I'm certain that the fire department is going to have, a capacity once all of the restaurant interior design is done, the kitchen area and things like that, but it can be no more than 400.
So these estimates that people are saying that over 1,000 in there at one time is inaccurate?
Yes, that is inaccurate. And the rooftop deck, I understand, can accommodate up to 200 people. But again, that's the design right now, and the ultimate design remains to be seen. I think at site plan you'll know that, but the numbers are 200 for the rooftop deck and no more than 400 for the restaurant.
And that's in the redevelopment agreement?
It is.
Okay. I mean, I know it is, but I just want to make,
yes,
want to
yes,
hear
it
you
is.
say it.
Yes.
Any other specifics that we want to, I know 137 slips are going to be kept.
So there's, I went over the dedicated parking. Mr. Vernon mentioned all of the other amenities that are going to be on site, and that's part of the agreement. The most important thing is the hotel will not operate without the marina being operational. And the restaurant won't operate without the marina being operational, and maintaining it as a deed-restricted 137-slip public marina.
Thank you. It also states in there that the slips will not be condominiumized.
It's part of the deed restriction that they will not be condominiumized. They will
I just want to make sure that...
Yeah, they will remain public, slips that are going to be available for lease to the public.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to become a private club.
So, I guess we have some ground rules about public comment.
Yeah, we asked everyone if you were wishing to participate in the public comment portion, that you provide your name and address on the clipboards that were out front, and you can still do so if you'd like. We have microphones in the back corners of the room. That's where you're going to go. We're going to limit the comments to 3 minutes, so hopefully we can accommodate everyone that would like to speak tonight. Try not to speak twice. We'll try to get through everybody if we can. Try not to repeat something that's already been said. If you'd like to support the comments made by others before you, just say that. Just say that you support those comments. And I think you put a time of 10:45 on it?
10:45, and then we'll call.
And at that time, we'll consider what we're going to do, if we're going to recess or how we'll handle it from there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so at this moment, I'm opening the floor to public comment.
We have a sign in here, so I'd like Kitty Snyder and Al D'Souza to head to the microphone on the back of this side. We'll take them first. Jim?
I think everyone knows how I feel, but I just want to say that this property that is being proposed tonight is part of the marine commercial redevelopment area. A redevelopment plan has been made into law by the governing body. The redeveloper is before council with a plan to conform with the redevelopment requirements. The redeveloper is asking to be considered like all others who developed property within this redevelopment plan. This redeveloper is complying and probably exceeding the borough parking requirements. This redeveloper and sadly the property owners have been subject to public scrutiny and personal attacks by many of you. The development as proposed is consistent with the plans for the development of the redevelopment zone. Other development has been approved in this zone with greater impact on parking and traffic than this proposed at Morrison's. By the way, this relief was without objection by Jane Enos. The owner and developer are asking for no more than what has been granted to other developers. In this case, the plan fits the site and provides public access, and very importantly, maintains a marina, which is indicative to the character of the area. And the deed restriction sets that in stone. Folks, this is going to be developed. And I think that the plan is beautiful. I love the open space behind the hotel. I think that, as I've said before, that as a passionate Beach Haven resident, someone who loves our town, I think that Chris Vernon will bring to us commerce, business that we can, I know I've talked to many restaurant owners that have had a great summer and some have not. I work in retail in the summer. Some days are busy, some days are not. This can only help all of the business in Beach Haven and Long Beach Township and on the island. So, that's it.
Do I have Al D'Souza at that microphone? Okay. Fred and Gail Marrow. Mindy Ryan. Bob Stevens. Barry Huntsberger.
I'm Mindy Ryan. I live on 2nd Street. My concern is the size of the hotel and how many people are going to be able to stay there. You said you're going to shuttle them to the beach. My guess is that's going to be up by 2nd Street. That's my beach. I can't imagine hundreds more people on the beach that's already really crowded. For the most part, I really want to consider the environmental impact of a place this size. It's beyond the scope of anything else we have in this town. The runoff in the bay from vehicles and delivery trucks, as well as light pollution, is just the beginning. I think we really need to get an environmental study done before anything moves forward here, and I beg you not to rush into anything before other ideas and possibilities are considered. Thank you.
I'm Bob Stevens. I live at 201 Coral Street. I think this will be a new landmark improvement for Beach Haven. The early Beach Haven hotels were certainly landmarks, and this new hotel and restaurant will be a place for gathering, a central meeting place for the community, as first-class hotels are in many cities. Secondly, the developer is known. What he does can be seen here on LBI. All of his projects are first-class buildings and facilities, and he's been willing from the beginning of this project to talk to the community's leadership about the hotel and restaurant, and adjustments have been made. The new hotel will bring visitors with money to spend. They will eat in Beach Haven, shop in Beach Haven, and support the businesses that are now in place. Plenty has been said about parking. I think it's sufficient to say he exceeds the requirements. And what better could be done with this property? Another condominium development, as such as was done with Shelter Harbor, would seal off the property from the bayfront. This hotel and restaurant does not. As a matter of fact, provides really a lot of public access. And finally, I think that Beach Haven has learned to cope with 13,000 day visitors for Chowderfest. In fact, it eagerly supports this annual gathering. I believe that the town will adapt itself to accommodate an attractive and vibrant new hotel and restaurant on the bay, which at its busiest times will accommodate only a few hundred people. Thank you.
My name is Barry Hunsberger. At the present time, I am staying at Morrison's Marina. I have a few questions for Mr. Vernon. As a boat slip renter, I'd like to know what the security will be for us boat owners during the summer and during the winter when we have to take our boats out of the water. Where will they be? And if they'll be in the parking lots like they are now, what will the security be? I, at present time, spend the summer on my boat. I might be bringing something up here that might cut off my nose to spite my face. I understand that I'm not allowed to do that in this borough. Now, that law, I understand, was made back in maybe 40s, 50s, but it's still on the books. What is going to be done with that? There's a lot of people that spend a lot of time in those marinas, or in Morrison's Marina, during the weekends and during the week. If they're not going to be able to do that, there's going to be a problem. So I'm looking for security. I'm looking for where the boats are going to go. I understand everybody's worried about what the building's going to look like, the environmental impact. That's what you have, people who do that for a living. I spend my whole life building projects like this. There's a lot of process that has to go through before Mr. Vernon can do it. And it's handled by professionals. As long as you look at what the professional says, and the person that's building it does it, you should be fine. But I'm worried about us as boat owners, what's going to happen for us. So that's where we stand. I don't know how many other boat owners are here from Morrison's, but we have to have what's going to happen to our boats. Thank you.
Chris Anderson. Tony Colgan. John Harvey. Either microphone.
Good evening. My name is Chris Anderson. I live at 425 3rd Street, directly bordering the marina. I have lived in Beach Haven since 1933. Our entire Bayside area is already overburdened during the summer with no place to park.
this overdevelopment will ruin my way of life, reduce my property value, and in all likelihood, drive me and my family out of Beach Haven. It has been an agonizing, long period of time to come to the decision to speak out. I have a long history with the Morrison and Enos families, and believe me, I don't want to be here talking tonight. But I do not see how this overkill can be of any betterment to Beach Haven or its residents. I have questions concerning the rumors surrounding tax abatements given to builders, developers, and businesses in Beach Haven. My first question, for the record, have you entered into or met with Mr. Vernon or his group or attorneys to discuss tax abatements? I will defer to Dan Allen, who always gets asked first. I'll go to the other end. Mr. Maskell, would you answer that question, please?
Not to the best of my knowledge. Nothing specific has been discussed.
But you have had conversation?
Yes, there have been conversations on tax abatements.
Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Lynch?
I have not had any discussions about tax abatement at all. I've heard about it, but I have not been in any type of discussion relative to tax abatement.
Mayor Davis?
No, there have been, with me, no discussions with Mr. Vernon about tax abatements.
Ms. Bowmiller?
Personally, no, I've never met with Mr. Vernon about tax abatements, but an area that has been designated as an area of redevelopment can have a tax abatement from 5 up to 30 years. Please correct me.
No, that's correct. And the redevelopment agreement does provide, Mr. Vernon can apply to the borough for a long-term tax abatement, but that has not been negotiated or discussed. No presentation has been made to the borough for that, but that is an option, yes.
Mr. Allen?
No, I haven't had any direct conversations about the tax abatement program with Mr. Vernon or his lawyers.
Okay, my second question to the council. For the record, have you previously given any tax abatements to builders, developers, or businesses in town, particularly the Victoria Rose development?
And the 3 minutes is up at this point.
There have been no tax abatements for the Victoria Rose project. That, again, they can apply for that because they are in a rehabilitation area, and the agreement that the borough entered into with them would allow them to do that. But there have been no applications.
Any other tax abatements given?
Yes, there was a tax abatement given to the Station 117 project, and tax abatements given to the Burris project at 500 North Bay.
Wow, anybody else in this room have a tax abatement for their property? I know I don't.
Go to the next person then. Who's next?
Yeah, my name is John Harvey, 211 2nd Street. Just to clarify something you said about restaurant occupancy. You said 400 people, and there has been some confusion around that. My understanding is that's for the restaurant. There's also a venue and a rooftop entertainment center on this particular site plan. The question I have for Mr. Vernon is what is the full occupancy, and I think it's 9,000 square foot at each level, for the hotel, for the venue, and for the rooftop entertainment center? And don't know if you want to clarify that now, because Nancy said the number 400 was inaccurate, or the 1,000 was inaccurate. I think the 400 is inaccurate.
Mr. Harvey, I can answer that. The redevelopment agreement allows only 400 for the restaurant and 200 for the rooftop deck. There is no other venue. I do not know where that information came from, but that is incorrect.
Second floor is then vacant, or that's restaurant?
That would be part of the rest. There is no additional venue.
Okay, great, thank you. Just a couple quick questions. Has a phase 1 environmental study been done? And if not, why are we not requiring it before we vote on this? You know, there's been much said, and I don't know Chris, and I'm sure he's a very nice guy, and he's done some decent projects, but the question I have for the board is the oversight of this project. And, you know, we say that the best determinant of future success is past performance, and it's been pretty publicly cited, the issues with the LBI Hotel, with exceptions to what was approved. Most notable was the balconies on the east side of the property and going 8 feet over the property line on the west side of the property. My understanding is that there was a certificate of occupancy received with the understanding that they would all be fixed. I think there was also a pretty significant bond. I think the construction or the remedy of those was supposed to happen or start on October 15th. And so I guess the question for Mr. Vernon is, has those remedies started? Are there any lawsuits around adhering to what was agreed to? And I'd ask the council to help us understand how we're going to manage this, even with a project manager. What if there are exceptions? And I have not seen one of Mr. Vernon's projects that are in the area of concentration with other people like it is in Beach Haven. Thank you.
I'm Tony Colgan from Ocean Street.
This is not a hearing, it's a public comment period, and the questions that you have, you can ask that are relative to the redevelopment agreement, sir. Tony?
Thank you. It would be very nice if we could all go back to the way it was when we were kids here. Those days are gone. I think the idea of the redevelopment is a good idea because it gives us more control of what we can do with this property. I think the bullet points are, this property is going to be sold and developed. I'd rather see it done with a plan. I want to keep a marina. I want to keep a ship store. I want to see a restaurant. I want to see it done with a plan. I have been chairman of the planning board in my township and the zoning board. And if somebody comes in and meets all the requirements of the zoning ordinance, we may not like what we end up with. So I'm going to go and say, I like this idea. Thank you.
Can I have Gene Bailey, Keith Davis, and George DeMeo?
Gene Bailey, 201 Pearl Street. Just a couple quick clarifications.
Gene Bailey, right?
Yes.
201 Pearl Street.
201 Pearl Street, correct. From these, what is the commitment? What happens if it gets voted down tonight? What is the process? Do they have to come back and reapply to you, or do you talk to some other people?
Mr. Vernon has the property under contract, and he explained that if this gets turned down tonight, he's still closing on the property, and he will develop another plan for that.
Okay. With regard to negotiating tax abatements, just a question. Is the council committed to not giving any tax abatements to any developers at this time? Because right now, shouldn't that be negotiated before an agreement is done? Because once it's approved here, we don't know what the negotiation, what the tax abatements will be and how they will affect the homeowners in Beach Haven.
In order for a tax abatement to be approved, it has to go through an ordinance process, and it must go through a public hearing, as we did earlier this evening for the ordinances that were adopted. At this time, because the process is so long for Mr. Vernon to go through all of the other permitting, all the costs associated with the project have not been established, and therefore no proposal has been made with regard to a need for an abatement for the project.
Approximate time for approval, for all state approvals, can you give us a general idea? Is it 1 year, 2 years, could be longer?
I can't guess at that.
Is there any way to plan, if the approvals are all given, how long would it take from the start of construction to complete construction? Can anybody answer that? Give us an idea.
The redevelopment agreement has a schedule. Just take a quick look. Approximately 12 to 18 months from the start of construction for the hotel and restaurant, and the marina improvements would take approximately 12 to 18 months from the start of construction.
Last question too, is with, we always read in the paper about how it's going to benefit the town with taxes and income. Is this going to guarantee that we're going to start seeing our taxes go down a little bit? We keep hearing this, but we always see, this is the first year in probably 10 years we've had a tax decrease. We know they're probably going to go up next year. There's a good chance, but what is the likelihood of our taxes stabilizing or going down with all of this development that we're doing? General idea, is it going to stabilize? I mean, we have to be doing projections, I would think.
We have not done that, no.
And the only other question I have with regard to slip owners, we know the guaranteed 137 slips, and I think with that development of that hotel, I'm not against development of that site, it would make sense, but something of that size obviously is going to attract a lot of higher old voters. Is that going to guarantee that the boat slip owners will have minimal increases for the years to come, or 10 years? So things to think about. But I'm not against it. It was a very good meeting tonight. Opened my eyes to a lot of things, but I think there's a lot more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean.
Keith Davis, attorney for Goldman et al.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Keith Davis. I do represent Ken Goldman and other neighbors on Dock Road and business owners in the area. We have filed a lawsuit against the borough challenging the legality of the redevelopment plan that we did adopt several months ago. I'm here tonight to respectfully ask you to delay action on this redeveloper agreement, to give everybody here tonight the opportunity to actually review this document, which has not been made available for public inspection, and is still not available for public inspection. I assume it will be as a matter of law if you take action on it this evening. But what it seems to me you're doing is you're taking items that should have been included in the redevelopment plan, which is a zoning ordinance, were not included, and now you are attempting to include those items as part of a redeveloper agreement based upon the summary that Ms. Gibbons provided tonight. I don't think that's appropriate. This is a resolution. It does not require public notice. As you indicated, Mayor, it does not require public comment. But a redevelopment plan does. It requires publication, requires a public hearing, requires the ability of everybody here to comment because it is a zoning ordinance, and you're not proceeding in that manner. So we object to the way in which this process is taking place, because it appears to us that you were attempting to zone by way of a redevelopment agreement instead of the way it should be, which is through a redevelopment plan. And in the interest of transparency, even if you don't agree with my argument from a legal perspective, it's a matter of fairness, we submit that before you take action on this very substantial and consequential project that's going to impact everybody in this borough, that you ought to release this redevelopment agreement first, allow members of the public to review it and intelligently comment on it, instead of relying upon a summary offered by council, listening to everybody about what we think is in the redevelopment agreement, and then have you vote on it tonight before we have the ability to review it. We have repeatedly raised concerns about this project from a site plan perspective, and the responses, we'll deal with that at the planning board level. There will be a site plan application and we'll deal with that then. There was discussion tonight about stormwater. The member of the governing body tonight correctly noted that your redevelopment plan exempts this project from stormwater management. And you're telling us it'll be dealt with at the planning board level. Unfortunately, you've handcuffed your own planning board to review this project, this plan of development, from a stormwater perspective. So it's not something that has to be addressed before the planning board, because your own redevelopment plan exempts this project from every other commercial development that has to take place from a stormwater perspective. Traffic. I heard a governing body member tonight say that he saw a little bit of a traffic study. So I have to assume that whatever traffic study that was reviewed is part of this deliberation that you've taken place tonight, and that has been incorporated into whatever vote you're going to take tonight on the redevelopment agreement. We ought to see it first. Members of the public ought to have the opportunity to review that traffic study before we take a vote on this redevelopment agreement tonight. And finally, this is my last comment, is parking. Mr. Vernon indicated that he has a lot of great ideas about parking. He just isn't going to share them with us just yet. Before you take a vote on this redeveloper agreement tonight, we ought to see what that plan is, because the parking associated with this project is going to be substantial. It's going to have an impact on this neighborhood, which is surrounded by residential uses. So before you take this action tonight, let's be deliberative, let's be transparent, let's allow everybody here to have all the facts before them so that they know that their elected officials are taking action in a responsible way and that this project is not being rushed through. Thank you.
George DeMeo. No. Barb Kona. John Wachter. William Burris.
Barb Kona, 100 Northwest Avenue. One of the most exciting things that I heard tonight was that Chris Vernon is going to purchase this property, whether he gets approval or not. That really excites me for the Enos family, the Cleavers. So it kind of removes the emotion for those of us who have refrained from speaking out about this project. I don't understand, and this is a question for council, I don't understand why we have these big projects for redevelopment or rehabilitation, such as Victoria Rose and Morrison's, and there is no requirement for a 3D model for these projects. If the developers have nothing to hide, there should be a model that the residents and the council can view that is to scale, that shows the surrounding area. This is a huge project that will impact our town for many decades. And the fact that we have nothing other than a picture up on the cards up there to see exactly what this looks like. What is the scale? Why aren't you showing the buildings around it, the homes on Pennsylvania Avenue? Could I get an answer to that? Because as far as I know, there's nobody on the council that's an engineer or a contractor, and how are you expected to make decisions like this without a 3D model showing the scale of the project? I've heard repeatedly in town people walking past Victoria Rose saying, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was going to be this big. Well, if we had had at this and seen the surrounding areas, looked at the building next door, looked at the stores across the street when it came to Victoria Rose, why aren't we seeing a 3D model of this project? Is it because if we look at a 3D model, we would all say, holy cow, this is way too big? I don't really know. I don't care if it's out of popsicle sticks and it shows the scale of the project. I just think that the town is entitled to that. This is not a small project.
William Burr?
100 Northwest Avenue, Beach Haven. I'm concerned that the hotel's a 24-hour operation, that there's insufficient parking that's being provided, that where the hotel is being constructed is where the parking used to be for the Morrison's restaurant. And the parking that's being provided under the hotel is insufficient for the hotel. I'm concerned about the residences. Chris talks about meeting with the residences, but the neighbors, to me, the neighbors on 2nd Street are the real neighbors. Most of them are involved in a lawsuit that is trying to protect their views that they're entitled to. Our understanding is within 100 feet of the bulkhead, which is all filled water's edge, that the project is restricted to the development of water-dependent uses. Hotels and restaurants are not water-dependent uses, but clearly rebuilding the former restaurant makes sense. I also would love to see what Plan B is, because I think that's a great idea, and I appreciate Mr. Vernon's commitment to buy this property. If he's approved or not, that's been a big issue. Thank you.
Lee, John Walker, 219 2nd Street. And I'd like to say I agree with what Mr. Ferris said, what Barb said, and also what Tony said. I go back 5 years ago when this whole redevelopment began. Around town, we were very concerned because of the downtown area being so distressed with buildings. Also, we had 23 empty storefronts. So the decision to go to a redevelopment plan gave the opportunity to the borough council to make some decisions as to what would happen. It gave them more control. So they were able to say what it looked like, what other things were needed or included in the plan. It worries me as Plan B also, because what Plan B could be, they will have no control. So as Tony said, that is something for us to be concerned about. I like the idea. I have some concerns also, and I hope that we can have the council work through those concerns and continue to attract people to our town that are going to invest and continue to make it a better place to change. Thanks.
Steve Steiner, Susan Johnston, and William, 100, can't really read it, 12th Street.
Steve Steiner, 521B Amber Street, although I spend most of my life in this building. We are a resort town. Our economy is based on maximizing the number of people able to visit us comfortably during a 10-week season, and then trying to entice as many people as we can to visit us at other times of the year. It's why we have the Chowder Fest, Chocolate Week, classic car shows, the Kite Festival, and Surf Light's December show, among many other events. We have the opportunity to radically up our game. We can have a world-class hotel right here in Beach Haven. Not only will this hotel bring a different clientele to our businesses, but it will increase the desirability of our destination in the traditionally slower months of the year. It will also provide a lot of jobs. There's been a tremendous amount of disinformation about this project. Some of it has been people surmising what will happen after approval. Some of it is simply untrue, designed to stir up opposition. I would challenge anyone here to tell me why we should not believe the presentation we just viewed to be truthful. Much has been said about the potential drawbacks to this project. Some complain that it is 44 feet tall and our limit is 35 feet. To be sure, Mr. Vernon brought his original designs to us and they were within the 35-foot limit. But the general tenor of the room that day told him that it would be better to go higher and have a more open look. So, at what I'm sure was not a small expense, he asked his architect to completely redesign the project. I was there and was surprised that people felt positive about going higher than 35 feet. I think the resulting design is an improvement, but either way, it's important for Beach Haven to move forward with this project. There have been concerns about noise. Odd time for that to happen. There's been concerns about noise. Do we really think people visiting this hotel will be louder than the clientele from the Catch, which was across the parking lot from this project until a year ago? Beach Haven has always been the entertainment hub of Long Beach Island, going back to the Ingleside, Acme, and Baldwin hotels, where my mother-in-law, who is now 94, waited tables in her teen years. Those hotels drew many more patrons than this hotel. Parking is certainly a problem in Beach Haven, and recently at a Borough Council meeting, I proposed a committee to research and propose solutions. The work of that committee is underway, and solutions will be proposed well in advance of this project being built. Meanwhile, this project includes 252 spaces, 60 more spaces than required by ordinance, 66 more spaces than required by ordinance. Valet parking will bring the total spaces to around 400. There is a solution to every problem. I've lived by that motto my entire life. It often requires thinking outside the box. The parking committee is certainly doing that. I had to do it in order to get this theater reopened. I believe Mr. Vernon has been doing that with regard to all of his projects. To my knowledge, Chris Vernon has 5 properties in our area, and they are all beautifully designed and appointed. We need to get in on this, and this hotel is our opportunity. Let's grow our potential visitor base. This will be good for everyone in Beach Haven. A rising tide lifts all boats. Thank you.
Could I have Susan Johnston? William? Kirk Anderson, 509 Center. Carol Shepard. Drew, 2912 Beach. Kirk Anderson.
Carl Anderson, 509 Center.
509 Center.
I'd like to echo my father's sentiments in regards to our long-term friends, the Enos and Cleveland families. None of us should be in this position right now. And I sure hope the developer goes through with this and honors his word to their best interest, keeping that in mind while also keeping the project in tune with the family atmosphere Beach Haven has always had and we all love. This development will be a 24-hour operation. With a project of this scope, size, and dollar value, for the record, before voting on the project, do you have any intention on doing an independent traffic and parking study? Mr. Maskell?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Mr. Lynch?
I believe there was a parking study, not a parking study, but I believe there was a traffic study.
Performed by who?
I'm sorry?
Performed by who?
I don't know who performed it, but I understand there was a parking, a traffic study.
So,
I don't know about a parking study.
Okay. Mayor Davis?
Yes, believing this belongs to the site plan aspect of this. That's why it's not being discussed tonight. This is a redevelopment agreement, not a site plan review. That will be discussed at the site plan review.
Don't you think these are things that should be done before you get to that point so you know where you are? No. Okay. Maybe you should think about it. It might make you make better decisions than the ones you made with Victoria Rose. Do you have any knowledge, or have you initiated a study to determine the effects of the added stress of the water supply, water mains, electricity? This summer's brownouts almost brought this town to a blackout, and the added amperage that this type of project will bring will cripple this town. Have you done any studies on that?
I think Mr. Little could address that.
Most of this will be dealt with at the time of site plan, but in prior discussions, I think in some of the presentations, we did indicate to the developer he would more than likely have to replace all the mains from the hotel to Long Beach Boulevard to tie into the county utility authority system as well as the water main. Currently, our water supply, I don't have the exact numbers, but we're well under the diversion rates that the state permits us to have. We don't have any violations, and the capacity we have for water supply should be sufficient to handle the project.
Including a water sprinkler system to put all this giant facility in compliance with fire regulation? Is there any requirement for a water holding tank?
Well, I would have to say anything that has to do with the building construction will be handled by the building department and all the building codes. And as far as fire sprinkler systems and whether they're dry or wet, all that'll go through the building department, not the land use board. That'll be a building issue.
Right. Well, it seems to me that prior to voting, you should have the data information necessary to make good decisions on these and many other aspects of the major developments going on in Beach Haven. It is incumbent of you all, as represented as all Beach Haven residents, taxpayers, and long-term stakeholders, businesses and visitors alike, to have these details in order before you approve such an overbearing project. Again, just look at the disaster you created with Victoria Road.
We have Carl Shepard. Susie Wright. Tom Kelly.
Carl Shepard, 214 3rd Street, Beach Haven, and one of those charter boats at the marina. I had a meeting yesterday with Mr. Vernon, and I actually gave him a fairly extensive list of things which we felt were necessary for the boats, the charter boats, and the rest of the boats in the marina. Since it's my livelihood right now, and a lot of people's homes. I passed a copy of this list on to our mayor and a number of other individuals. He went over it in detail, and anybody who wants a copy could get one from me. He said he saw no problem in achieving each of the items listed. It was one side of one sheet of paper. We had a lot of people who had ideas in the marina. So far, what we've been told is that he will do as we ask. I don't know how much more I could ask of anybody. Thank you.
Tom Kelly, 133 5th Street, here in Beach Haven. I'd like to add that I am in support of everyone else that has supported this project. In addition, I'd like to add the comments that to have a year-round business in town adds to the vibrancy of the economy. I think I could probably count on one hand the number of businesses that are open in the wintertime, 7 days a week. We need to be able to support those businesses. They're critical to the culture of our town. And if we have yet another business that's going to operate year-round, it's going to add to the other businesses that also sustain year-round business. Thank you very much.
At this time, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, 5-minute recess.
Do I have a motion to recess 5 minutes?
Motion to recess?
Second. All in favor? Thank you.